Item 3, I'm sorry, issue 15. It's the third issue that we took up, but it's issue 15 on our agenda, which was on page 18. Precision medicine, issue 15. Call the absent members, please.
Monning, Nguyen, Pan,
15-0? Okay,
Reopen that and I'll go.
yeah, we're doing that too.
15-1,
15,
I'm an aye.
15-1. You have Senator Nguyen's vote as an aye? Okay. So that would make it 15-1?
Oh, to reject, I'm sorry.
The motion was to reject.
Oh, okay.
So what is your vote?
No.
No. Her vote is no. So what does the vote count? 14-1. We're closing the roll on that. Moving on to issue 14, which was the fourth item we took up, which was on page 17. That is our Go Biz item. Call the absent members, please.
Anderson,
12-5, that item passes. Moving on to issue 16, which was the fifth item we took up. This is OES, page 19, issue 16. Call the absent members, please.
Nguyen, Roth,
Nielsen, no to aye.
The vote is 12-3. The measure passes. Moving on to the sixth item we took up, which is issue 18. Issue 18 on page 21. That is the No Place Like Home initiative. Call the absent members, please.
Anderson,
Page 21, issue 18, No Place Like Home.
Glazer,
Yes.
Hancock, Nguyen, Roth,
July.
13-1, measure passes. Then moving back to issue 3, which is our Prop 98 package, page 6, Prop 98, issue 3. Call the absent members, please.
Bell, Hancock,
Prop 98.
I'm voting aye with the understanding that this is going to be discussed in.
This goes directly to conference. This is not the final word. This goes directly to
The
conference.
Senate did put in additional money last year, and I hope we'll be able to do that again.
That is the intent.
Nguyen, Pan, Roth,
Yes, we did, 10-5. Measure passes. And then issue 4, which was the base augmentation for Hastings College on page 7, issue 4. Call the absent members, please.
Bell, Hancock, Mitchell, Pan, Pavley, Roth,
$16.0. Measure passes. And then the last issue, so we can consider ourselves completely caught up, is issue 5, which we've just discussed, the academic building replacement project for Hastings on page 8, issue 5. Call the absent members, please.
Block, Mitchell, Roth,
5, Hastings Academic Building. Issue 5, Hastings Academic Building Project. 12-3 is the final vote. Colleagues, we're all caught up. We are moving on to our next item in order. which is issue 6 with California Air Resources Board, and that is our cap and trade expenditure plan. And before we begin, because I'm sure there will be much conversation, this also will be going to conference. So many moving pieces, there's no way we're going to match exactly what the Assembly has done. So keep that in mind as we have this conversation today. It is just the beginning of the conversation, not the end of it. And I also want to make mention, because it is a very visible difference between the governor's proposal and the Senate, and that is that cap and trade funding for transit is being proposed to be held, and that is part of the larger transportation funding conversation. So just so we all understand why we would have done such a thing. And with that, Ms. Costa, let me introduce the LAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Ross Brown with the LAO. You should have a handout that's just a one-page handout with a table in front of you. Committee staff asked us to put the table together to reflect the differences between the proposed governor's cap and trade expenditure package and a proposed Senate package based on information that was provided to us by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
So
Please proceed.
I will walk through that. Before I do that, I might, if it's okay with the chair, I might just take just 1 minute to provide a little bit of context and background for the issue. In January, the governor proposed a $3.1 billion cap and trade expenditure package. In some ways, this represents a couple years of funding. As you might remember, the legislature didn't adopt a full spending package last year for cap and trade, and so the $3.1 billion amount reflects expected revenue in the 2016-17 year, as well as a significant spending from a significant fund balance that's expected at the end of the 15-16 year. You heard the administration's proposal in a February hearing, and we provided a lot of our comments related to that proposal in that February hearing. In general, our comments are related to suggesting the legislature think about the spending programs in the context of its larger climate policy strategies. A variety of different regulations and policies in place to achieve the state's greenhouse gas goals. Important to consider these spendings in these spending programs in that context. Also, another issue that was touched on in that hearing quite a bit, I think, is the issue of outcomes and measuring what can be expected from these different programs. We continue to think that's an important issue, as I know many of the members raised that issue in the previous hearing. Since the time of the February hearing, the administration has released a March report that provided some information on outcomes of expected outcomes from programs that have been funded so far. We continue to have, while it's a step forward, we have some concerns about the methodology and the data that goes into some of those assumptions. So we'll continue to work with the administration on that issue and work with the committee. Just moving on to the table and the differences, the high-level differences between the governor's $3.1 billion package and a proposed Senate plan, which would be $2.7 billion. The continuous appropriations, which are currently in state law, would remain the same under both packages, and the expected amount that would be provided under that continuous appropriation is $1.2 billion. Moving down the table to programs in the transportation area, as the chair mentioned, the biggest change and difference between the proposed Senate plan and the governor's plan is the Senate plan would remove the $400 million that would have been allocated to transit intercity rail capital program, and the $100 million that would have been allocated to a new low carbon road program. Moving down the table further, with respect to the carbon sequestration related programs, these are natural resources related programs, a net reduction of $45 million in the Senate plan relative to the administration's plan. The biggest change is a reduction from $150 million to $25 million in the Healthy Forest program at CAL FIRE. But also offset by an $80 million increase in the Green Infrastructure Program, which would be administered at the Natural Resources Agency. Energy efficiency and renewable energy programs, largely the same. The Senate plan would increase spending for an energy efficiency financing program by $30 million. The short-lived climate pollutants program, a variety of programs aimed at addressing short-lived climate pollutants. The Senate plan would reduce spending from, relative to the governor's proposal, from $195 million to $50 million. The biggest increase in programmatic spending in the Senate plan relative to the administration's plan is an increase from $100 million to $400 million for the local climate programs, also referred to as the transformational climate programs, which would be administered by the Strategic Growth Council. So that's a $300 million increase. A net $40 million reduction in spending for water efficiency programs, and a $3 million addition for community outreach to disadvantaged communities. So again, overall, the Senate plan would allocate $2.7 billion, which would be a $400 million decrease relative to the administration's proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for the comprehensive overview. Ms. Costa.
Yes, we appreciate the Budget Committee's recommended approval of many of the items in the administration's cap and trade proposals. I'd also like to note that we appreciate, Mr. Chair, your comment about the transportation funding, and look forward to continuing conversations both about this package as well as our broader transportation package as part of the conference committee. The analyst noted a couple of differences, and I'd like to highlight a couple as well. One is regarding the recommended action and the reduction with the forest health programs by over $100 million. Many of the subcommittees have heard several different proposals that the administration has offered this year dealing with tree mortality, and that certainly makes our forest more susceptible to destructive wildfires, so we do feel like that funding is important. I'd also note that the recommended action would reduce and or eliminate funding for several of what we consider some of our more cost-effective programs, including organic waste diversion, forest health, and dairy digesters. Lastly, as the analyst pointed out, there's a reduction in the money associated with water efficiency, and again, the administration has talked frequently in the throes of a drought, but more on an ongoing basis about really pivoting the state to making water conservation a way of life, even when we aren't in the throes of a drought, as something that's kind of the new normal for Californians.
Thank you, Ms. Costa. Senator Wolf, do you want to begin?
Sure. Mr. Chair, members, I wanted to just make a couple comments about the process through which we have gone up to this point. There have been, at the Budget Subcommittee, a number of hearings on cap and trade starting as early as last year. In the previous legislative year. You know that there have been proposals, they've been discussed in caucus, there have been working groups, things have changed. There was some appropriation of funding last year on a very limited number of programs, and this continued effort to come to some kind of consensus has been very difficult. Not only in the caucuses, but between the houses and with the governor. And that process needs to continue. That's why the proposal is in front of us to be moved to the conference committee for further discussion. These are monies that we know are in the bank, essentially, for the year 2016. It's a one-year expenditure proposal, and that's what you have in front of you. So I would urge that this be taken for what it is, which is an effort to get to conference committee where the Senate, the Assembly, and the governor will thrash this out and hopefully come up with a resolution so that we can move forward with some very important and significant and positive programs. So with that.
Thank you, Senator Wolf.
Could be.
I will take that as a motion.
I have to make it more specific.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen.
Mr. Chairman, I just have to also mention, because I brought it up in committee, that there is a legal cloud hanging over this with the opinion of council and of analysts that the governor has exceeded his legal authority with the executive order, and there's pending litigation. And so how we proceed with this, a very major part of our budget, there is risk here. We just need to be aware of that.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. Senator Block.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to check if it's all right with the chair of the subcommittee. I know you're very supportive of funding for study of atmospheric rivers. We've talked about a $9 million figure. Since these are more broad categories, before I go to vote, is it the intent that that's included somewhere in here?
Yes, it actually is. The intent, and I will make that as part of the longer motion. It is the intent of the committee, which will be my motion, to allow the $3 million for research for atmospheric rivers to be funded by money that's already within the budget, proposed in the budget. It's a $15 million
Now,
CEC, the Energy Commission General Fund, that's already been in the budget proposed.
my understanding was that it was $9 million?
It is 3.
Great. Okay, so some is funded. Thank you.
All right. Is that correct? To the CEC? No, it's separate.
Matt Almy, Department of Finance. Just as a point of clarification, the administration, of course, did have a $3.1 billion cap and trade expenditure plan, but in addition, and as part of the January budget, we proposed a $15 million one-time general fund proposal for the Energy Commission for innovative technologies and research related to transportation fuels. And I believe that that is the proposal that the senator is referring to in terms of dedicating a certain amount of that towards atmospheric rivers as a point of clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Ullman. So seeing no public comment, Senator Bell.
My understanding, we just got this today, right? So this is really not a committee proposal, it's a staff proposal, is that right? My opinion is, right now, in the negotiations, when you cut all the transit money out, you kind of put transit at a disadvantage in terms of, working things, so I really object to the $400 million being taken out of the governor's proposal. I think that was wrong. We've been working very hard trying to get a consensus on transportation. It's difficult enough than to have the $400 million taken out. And I'm very concerned that this was done in this way without a great deal of discussion on this specific proposal. So I just want to say that. I wish we had more time to have a dialogue on this, and I don't think I can vote for this at this time, but I'm willing to hear what people have to say. But Mr. Chairman, I object to the process. I'm not happy about that. I think the $400 million is essential to coming up with a transportation package in the ultimate. So I wanted to say that. I believe this is not the right thing to do.
Thank you, Senator Bell. If it's...
By the way, I wasn't consulted on that either.
I understand. Nor was I. To the degree it may provide any comfort, I can assure you, though, I will be supporting this package to get it to conference, as I said at the beginning. This is the start of a conversation, hardly the end. This will be determined finally in conference committee, and I am as committed, for obvious reasons, to transit funding as you are, coming from a similar urban area as you. I would not support anything coming out of conference that looks anything like this. So this is not as I envision it, but whether we restore that 400 today or not, we'll still go to conference and we'll still have the same conversation. So though your point is well taken, in the end, the decisions will be made in conference.
Well, what I'm saying is it kind of, when you take out the $400 million, it kind of puts transit in the negotiating process at a disadvantage, and I don't think that's right. I think that creates a conference committee disadvantage. So I want to make that point, and it's very specific in this proposal that we're creating a disadvantage for transit. It shouldn't be adopted by the Senate in the ultimate sense, so.
I hear you. Senator Pavley.
First, just a question for point of clarification. Are we talking about an expenditure plan that is for this current fiscal year?
This
Correct.
is for the current year, correct?
So argumentatively, the one for the next fiscal budget year, could have some of these additional monies in it that are also part of the longer-term discussion relating to transit plans or what that money could be used for that. I should point out that about a large percentage of above the line goes for transit in general, not particularly Senator Bell's projects, but high-speed rail and the transit-oriented development and the intercity transit and the state transit assistance. That's the lion's share of $1.2 billion.
Senator Pavley, let me modify my earlier response to your question just slightly in that the question is a bit moot because we're coming up on the end of the fiscal year.
But are they all rolled in together or as one, or is it?
So this is a proposal that would have served 15-16.
Right.
But by the time we get it done, 15-16 will have concluded. So in effect, it will be 16-17, but we still have the 16-17 investment to make on top of.
On top of that?
Yes.
That's my point, on top of that, that this isn't, to lower the temperature a little bit, isn't the end of the discussion because you have other monies available for the next round, if you will.
That is correct.
That could be more timely for other purposes.
And as I said, that which we're passing to conference is not going to come out of conference the way it looks anyway. So Senator Glazer.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question unrelated to this point that you're on now. I don't know if Senator Panovitz following up, then I defer. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if we could ask the the administration to, in light of this potential legal threat to the cap and trade spending, what is the contingency plan in case that judgment goes against the administration and our ability to assess this fee? What alternatives do you think are going to be available to us if we spend this money?
I would say that we have a very strong, high confidence level that the expenditures here are consistent with the legal requirements that they all result in emission reductions. And so what we've done is we've structured our cap and trade expenditure plan in a manner that is legally consistent with the requirements and that all expenditures need to result in emission reductions. And so that's kind of been our thinking on the expenditures, is to make sure that they are the most legally defensible.
Right, and I'm not an expert on the litigation, but I thought that part of the challenge is the ability, the authority of the administration to actually assess this fee or tax or however you're going to interpret it. So it's not really necessarily just about how you spend the money, but whether or not we have exceeded our authorization in assessing that fee or tax, how you define it. Is that also part of the litigation?
My understanding is that is part of the litigation. I'm probably not the most qualified to talk about the legal nuances of it, but.
Right, but my question is, does the administration have a contingency plan in case we were to lose that litigation, even though you have a high confidence level, and I appreciate that? Is there a contingency plan that if we spend this money, then what do we do if we were to lose that case?
Rivers reduces greenhouse gas emissions.
What I would say is that this, at this point in time, the cap and trade has collected more revenues than it's actually allocated. And so over time, as we appropriate money, there will be, the revenues will be coming in. We're tracking it to the point where we're not going to be spending more than we're taking in.
Right, but how much money is at risk to date? If you allowed this spending to go forward, how much money now is at risk were we to lose that case? I understand your point, which is that we're not spending it all, but how much have we spent and how much, if you add on to what we're proposing?
At this point, we've collected a total of $4 billion of revenue, of auction revenue, and I believe that the appropriations are less than $1 billion.
Do you think we've spent $1 billion to date?
I want to say appropriate would be a little bit more accurate.
You think we've appropriated $1 billion to date?
It's in that
Cap and
range.
trade fee tax, and that would be then, if you went along with the administration's plan, we'd be appropriating another $3 billion more, so we would have $4 billion at risk should a judgment come down within the next year that said we had to pay it back.
This is $4 billion to date. Remember, we're also projecting another $2 billion for the budget year of auction revenues.
Right, but I'm talking about what we have spent if we were required to pay it back. So it sounds like you're saying it's about $4 billion through the end of this next fiscal year that we would have at risk. Is that correct?
I don't know if I would characterize it at risk, but I understand your point.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Glazer. I know Senator Pavley has a comment, but first we're going to go to Senator Pan, then to Senator Pavley, and then to Senator Nielsen.
Oh, thank you. Just for clarification, because what happens is that we see that there's particular line items that that we have in our Senate proposal that we're taking out of the governor's proposal, and then, but then of course we're increasing funding for what's called local climate programs, and perhaps you can speak to the scope of what can be funded through those programs, just so that we have a sense of, okay, well now, since we've increased money for local programs and the nature of how that money is going to be distributed. So in many ways, I think, I believe, I could be corrected, is this also an effort to try to actually give more local direction versus state direction? Priorities, right, and which I think is a good thing. But I also, maybe someone can speak to the parameters on what kind of things, obviously has to deal with climate change, but things that be spent on. So could it be spent on local transit? Could it be spent on so forth? Because what happens is, obviously, it's always easier to say, well, we don't want to cut something that we see has a particular name on it. But maybe if that was a local priority, they could then spend it on those issues. So if someone could just address that, I'd appreciate that.
Mr. Brown, is that something you can respond to?
Yeah, I mean, I think the local climate programs could capture sort of some of those things that you're talking about. I think this was a proposal that was part of the administration's January budget. There wasn't sort of a lot of detail on exactly what types of projects would be funded, but I think the idea is that local communities would come forward with proposals that best meet their sort of local needs and local sort of ideas for what would work well. And I think there is a particular focus on disadvantaged communities in this program.
So again, just to clarify, actually, in many ways, the Senate proposal is an effort to, instead of dictate it from the top, the state, actually trying to better identify and then direct based on more local needs and identification and needs, and so that we are actually trying to move this money closer to the community, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot might depend on sort of what sort of bounds are put on the program and sort of how the funds are allocated and how they judge the different proposals. But yeah, there would be, under the local climate program, there would be a lot more, I think, input from locals saying, indicating sort of what they feel like would meet their needs best.
So I guess in general, I mean, I kind of like that idea. I appreciate that that's the direction we're moving in, although I hope that as we further develop that direction, especially since we're directing more funds that way, that all of us here, all of our senators here could be apprised of and have and be able to weigh in on more specifics on how that will be handled. But I do like the idea that we're actually trying to, if those funds, get them more directed in that direction.
Thank you, Senator Pan. Senator Pavley.
Yeah, just two comments, trying to follow all this. Dr. Pan, on the local climate programs, interesting concept, which probably requires some follow-up legislation, but generally speaking, the discussion has been it might be appropriated through grants through the Strategic Growth Council, but whether it's the cities or the nonprofits in local communities, and I think they're right, that it would lean towards disadvantaged communities, but that's not the end of the discussion there, would have to comply with the same nexus rules, right? This is a fee on polluting. If you can't mitigate your pollution, you pay a fee. And then the fee has to be invested in programs that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So locals would have to be able to quantify those reductions and have audits and demonstrate that. Otherwise, a fee becomes a tax. So when AB 32 passed back in 2006, way before Proposition 26, right? It gave the authority to CARB to adopt market-based mechanisms, and that includes programs like cap and trade. So the only discussion has always been that these fees on major polluters, and there's 350 major polluters in the state, would have to then be reinvested to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Energy efficiency, transit, and those kinds of programs would probably easily pass those tests, but you have to quantify them. And so that's why it's a fee, and most people think it would survive legal towns. This was adopted back in 2006. And there is a nexus. That's the key. All these programs should have a nexus.
That is what we're talking about here. Senator Nielsen.